Well, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started to be respectful of your time. This is an opportunity. It's an informational meeting. Is for those of you who came tonight, and thank you for doing that, for you to walk out this door to be fully informed about what we are asking for our community, our residents on November the 7th. And I think it would be helpful to go back to last spring to kind of set the stage of where we're at. Maybe that would help answer a question or two. And absolutely, if we have questions throughout this, just raise your hand. We have these are more intimate type groups. I feel, that please feel free if you have a question or if you don't understand something. Our goal, again, is to clarify. So last spring, and actually leading up to last spring, East Muskingum Schools was in a situation where we were deficit spending, and we were coming to the end of that biennial budget with an uncertainty about how schools were going to be funded in the state of Ohio. So we had to make a very difficult decision, and the board did, to renew our emergency operating levy, and based upon where we stood financially, ask for an increase. And so that was the ballot issue last May. And as responsible public entity, we heard our public that was not in support of that because of the increase. And so therefore, as a fiscal organization the part of that, we made some reductions in personnel. And I hate to start with that, but it helps us set the stage, I guess, for where we are. We reduced staff to the tune of about $750,000 in May, leading us up to this coming school year. And we had that not knowing for sure, or the uncertainty about what the state budget was going to be. Fortunately, the first week of July, the legislature agreed to continue to support the Fair School Funding Formula, and it's actually an increase from what had been originally proposed. And East Muskingum Schools benefited from that. So in addition to the $750,000 that we reduced in personnel and the state funding, we are able to operate in the black for the next 2 years. If you aren't familiar, our budget is set by the state of Ohio on 2-year cycles. By law, our treasurer is required to file a 5-year financial forecast twice a year. So, and we have a school treasurer in the room with us. She's not our treasurer, but she's friendly, a neighboring school district. And all treasurers can attest to this. If you're trying to forecast your future and you don't know what your budget is, anyone in here who either your home or a business owner would know there's some difficulty in trying to develop that financial forecast. So irregardless, with the state funding increase, with our cuts that we made, we have an opportunity to be in the black for these next 2 years. So that brings us to November the 7th. And we have 2 issues that are on the ballot, and I'm actually going to go to our renewal first. And on the back of this paper, because we wanted everyone to see the actual ballot language, we do not get to write the description of the ballot language. We also do not get to order them by number. So actually, by number 20 on your ballot is the renewal of the emergency operating levy that was originally passed in 1993 for a fixed dollar amount of $394,200. That same dollar figure has been collected in East Muskingum Schools since 1993. We're asking our community to continue to pay that money. So in other words, it's a tax or you already are paying, and it will collect the same amount of money. Additionally, we have 2 issues that are coming off of your tax record, which would be a bond issue that was passed in the year 2000. The bond was passed to build the new middle school and renovate John Glenn High School, Larry Miller Intermediate, and New Concord Elementary. So that bond was passed by our community to do those things. It's expiring, it's paid off. It's like a mortgage. So when it expires, that would come off. And when you build anything in the state of Ohio through the state system, you're required to pass a $500,000 maintenance levy in conjunction with the building project, and that is to maintain what you built. So it kind of makes sense. That is also expiring because the bond expires. So those collectively are at 1.7 mils, not $1.7 million, 1.7 mils. So with that expiration, our school board, and in conjunction with the treasurer and I, working with the county auditor, we felt it was necessary for us to continue to generate the same amount of money, but not ask for an increase. So therefore, in working with the county auditor, we're asking for 1.3 mils in an operating levy to replace that amount that's being collected for the bond and $500,000 maintenance in order for East Muskingum schools to address the financial burden that has come with just generally doing business. We have seen significant increases in fuel supplies, in particularly anything related to maintenance supplies, HVAC, all of the equipment in that nature, just general paper and office supplies that have, everything we have seen has increased from 10 to 15%, some even more significantly than that. For instance, we typically buy 1 to 2 school buses a year. We have about 28 in our fleet, and a school bus is now $106,000. 5 years ago, probably about $88,000. So you can kind of determine and see what that increase has done to us from a financial perspective. So item or ballot issue number 19 is an emergency operating levy for a 5-year term to collect $515,000 on an annual basis. And again, we have been fortunate to work with both the Muskingum and Guernsey County Auditor, and on both of their websites, they have information stating what the proposed or current level of tax is, what the proposed is, and then you can work your way down to see what is expiring, add up those two numbers, and we haven't found any individual yet who is going to have an increase. Now, the level of tax is very close. Some people, it's within $1 of each other of what they're currently paying, but our school board was just insistent that if we go back to our community for this necessary need, we're not going to ask for more. So essentially it would be this: will our community continue to pay what they're currently paying to maintain and allow us to grow the programming, maintain current personnel, and allow this district to continue to be successful? And I say this a lot, but from 7:30 till 4 o'clock, we do an outstanding job with what we do in the classroom. Beyond that classroom, which it happens every single day, then we have so many other opportunities, whether they're co-curricular or extracurricular. And that's where we feel so, I guess, proud of the opportunities that not only do our students have those opportunities, but they're thriving in those variety of activities, whether it's music and the arts or athletics or any other opportunity that we have added for students to be able to experience and better prepare them for what they're going to face as they make their way from a Perry Elementary, which is a pre-K2 building, to John Glenn High School, where there's opportunities for College Credit Plus, the Career Center, and or the general curriculum that happens every day at John Glenn High School. So once again, we are not asking for more money, we're asking for the same amount of money to continue to do what we are currently doing. And I will just tell you that making personnel decisions, and if there would happen to be additional personnel decisions, when personnel is lost, that leads to loss of programming. And that's what we really do not want to do. We do not want to go backwards in any way. We're very pleased, I guess, with class sizing from the K2, the intermediate, and then the levels up above. We feel strongly in maintaining those workable classroom sizes. So our objective is to try to inform our public that these are absolutely critical for us in moving forward from a financial status and from an educational and programming aspect. So, does anyone have any questions based upon that? And trust me, we've heard a lot of questions, and as Chad says, if there's rumors, we would like to address anything that maybe you've heard, whether it's at the coffee shop, you've seen it online, whatever those may be. It's helpful if we can just tell you honestly, here's the story, and here's what we're doing, and here's why we're doing it, so that we can ensure that we're maintaining the current level of programming for our students. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
So you said for next year you get the operating involved.
Correct.
Is that with or without, if both of these pass or without?
That's with these passing currently. That's a very good question. I'm sorry. So we are recording tonight so that we can share this then with folks who maybe were not able to attend. So the question set was, which was a good question, operating in the black, does that include passing both of these issues, or are we already in the black? So that's an outstanding question. It would be imperative that we pass both of these to continue to operate the next 2 years. And when I say 2 years at a time, as again, in 2 years, we'll be back to another budget cycle from Columbus. And so we're certainly hopeful that education would continue to be supported at the current level or even beyond that. But that's an excellent question that we were counting on passing these two in order to make sure that we have operations in the black for the next 2. Very good question.
If I have a question, what percent of your annual budget is actually from the state to show the uncertainty of that, but also the importance of what the state does?
Great question.
Right now, we're at 47% state funded. So half of our $20 million budget is from state dollars. So yes, when that is affected, that certainly does affect us in a very impactful manner. Correct, right. And I didn't repeat that question, I'm sorry, so I will go ahead and repeat that. So what is the percentage of our state funding? And we're 47%, so let's just say 50-50, state and local, and the significance of being able to not only support it from a local standpoint, but we're really reliant upon the Fair School Funding formula in helping us.
Can you explain what Fair School Funding is? I mean,
Good question. The question was, what is this Fair School Funding program or model? So I'm going to be as brief as I can and say this. There have been 3 Supreme Court rulings by the state of Ohio that school funding is unconstitutional, and actually in Perry County, the DeRolf case is where it kind of came to that ruling. And so in the last 5 years, a group of people comprised of treasurers, superintendents, and other leaders have come up with a formula that is actually more reflective of the day-to-day operations. And I'm not going to pretend to know this. Kara may know, but it's so complex when you think about a rural school versus a city school funding situation, and how do you make that funding system equitable, not to mention the controversy associated with property tax and how it relates to school funding. So this very complex formula was put together by a lot of people, and the nice thing is they did involve school personnel and a lot of treasurers and superintendents. And the objective was, can we make this formula as fair as possible for as many of our school districts as possible? And again, I'm going to say this, the previous formula only worked for about 20% of the school districts in the state of Ohio, and there's over 600 of them. The current formula, I believe, if you are a math person and you know all of the numbers to put in there, is over 85%, I think, in that neighborhood. I'm pretty sure. So the Fair School Funding formula is effective. Now I'm going to say this, the Fair School Funding formula also hurt East Muskingum schools significantly because open enrolled students we used to receive 100% of whatever the per pupil funding was for an open enrolled student. The new formula says this: you are funded for every student based upon your state funding where they attend, not where they live. That's a big deal for us. We have 308 open enrolled students coming to East Muskingum schools. It used to be $6,000 per student. That's an old number. That number has now since been increased. But if you would times 300 times 6,000, that was the number. Cut that in half. That's really why we're in a situation that was very sudden that led us to last spring, because that happened in one budget cycle. Within that budget cycle, they changed the way schools were funded. There are other factors that are involved in the fair school funding formula. Transportation is a little more fair than it used to be. Obviously, a rural school district, 192 square miles for us. We have 19 buses making 2 loops a day. So they are trying to make a difference there. But the answer to that is it's the new system. We have benefited from it this year. But it took some getting used to, in the sense that it took away what we considered to be one of our very beneficial aspects of open enrolled coming in. So that's an excellent question.
So that, if it remains the same and things don't work out as well over the next 2 years, does that going to affect what happens to?
I don't know if it would necessarily affect them. It may. So here's one more caveat with the fair school funding formula. When it was originally proposed 2 years ago, it was on a 6-year phase-in, which meant it had to go through 3 biennial budgets. The first phase of that, it got to 1/3 of what was projected. They funded that formula at 1/3. We're at 50. We're going to go to 67% next year. So the question would be, will the next legislature pass the fair school funding formula and go ahead and continue to take it to the next 2 steps? So in year 6, what was proposed should be fully funded by the state of Ohio, what was proposed, but that doesn't mean that they will do that. So I think an interesting question leading to what you're asking, Carol, would be this. Some districts surrounding us no longer saw the benefit to accept as many open enrolled students, because now you're not receiving 100% of those students' funds, you're receiving your state share. In our case, that would be 50%. If you think about it from our organizational standpoint, we were operating on the assumption that 2,200 students, regardless of where they lived, that's how we created our staffing. So if you progressively reduce your open enrollment numbers, the common sense thing would say that that has to be a staffing issue. May or may not be a building issue, but it would certainly be a staffing issue if we were to get to that point. I guess one very positive thing that I would like to say, if there are 300 students in our borders who want to come here, that to me in itself is a tremendous compliment. Out of 2,200 students, if 300 of them are coming to us. Now, I do want to make it clear here, we have students who go out as well. We do. So just so there's an understanding, it isn't 300 to the positive. We have about 95 to 100 students who go elsewhere, and their reasoning or rationale varies. Some of that is literally geographical, where they live. We have some students who go elsewhere because their parents work in those districts and their parents take them to those schools. Just like we have parents who don't live in our district who work for us bring their children here. So it's an interesting dynamic, though, for sure, is juggling and balancing that. That's why we want to continue to offer the programming that we currently do, because we think that that's what makes people not only want to attend school here, and it's certainly not the programming, it's absolutely the culture, it's the way people, the interaction, the way they are treated, and they feel at home and safe in our buildings. But it doesn't hurt to have some of these other things that are attractive that people don't have the opportunity to do elsewhere. All right.
I have a question. Have you considered how much it would save to be closed one of your elementary buildings? I know it's not really you wanted, but if that's, and like if, let's say these don't pass, or that's the natural next step, how much could you potentially save on it?
We have some very raw figures, like we have utility figures. I'm sorry. Have we considered if we were to close an elementary building, should one or two of these levies not pass, in closing a building? And from, I guess I'm a superintendent and treasurer aspect, we definitely know what a utility costs are, some general maintenance issues. We do have some unique situations, though, that, for instance, Perry Elementary, and it was renovated or remodeled with East Muskingum dollars. So everything you're seeing here, we paid for with our own. There's a geothermal field attached to that. That's what is doing a lot of the heating and cooling here. So a significant investment that was way different than maybe a typical boiler or forced air kind of a situation. Doesn't mean that it would not be factored into that equation. We also know that we have 3 elementary schools that were built in the 30s, all of them in early 30s to late 30s. So we're approaching the century mark on New Concord Elementary. The other thing that it does to us with this is, as we're at the western part of our school district, is it puts us in a situation of logistically, the way we're built with our K2s, right on Route 40, 22 is Perry, New Concord, Pike. And so there would certainly be, then you get into busing type of issues depending on where folks live and those kind of things. Those numbers have been put into play, yes. They're not firm or exact, but yes.
Was it 2 buildings, it's between 300 and 700,000.
Right.
That's a big difference, but
Sure.
to know that that's a big chunk of your budget.
Right.
That you save.
It's a good question, Kara. Thank you. One thing we do have, Mr. Mathers has a laptop, and so if there is anyone who would help some navigation through like the county auditor's website, we can help you do that. And it's on this handout. If you go to the Muskingum County Auditor's website, once you get there, you can put your address or your name. If you put your name like Adams in there, you'll get a bunch of them, but you'll eventually get where you want to go. And it is very specific. It shows you what the current level is, what is being proposed. The Muskingum County website does not show what is coming off. The Guernsey County Auditor does. Then you would have to go to levy distribution. When you go to that, you can, if you look at the number that's next to the bond and the maintenance levy, if you put those two numbers together and subtract them, take them off, because those will be expiring at the end of this calendar year. So that we do have that if anybody would help, like some help there. And I guess I'll just ask, because it always never hurts in our last 19 days, does anyone have any ideas or ways that you think would be a better way for us to share this with our community members? Because that is some of the feedback which you learn from every opportunity. And we have learned that people at last May felt like they were not informed enough. Yes, Keith?
What programs are at stake, I guess? If it doesn't pass, will you lose it?
Okay, so what is at stake if this does not pass? And what we worked really hard to do, and what we did this time, was not compromise anything that affected any student's learning on a daily basis. Now, I'm going to say that, and I've got some elementary teachers in here. They're going to say, yes, you did, because we don't have a title teacher. We're one less title teacher, and that's a reading teacher, than we had last year. We're one less kindergarten teacher than we were last year. Now, fortunately, we had a small kindergarten group. So we did not have to inflate. We lost a world language teacher. We lost a history teacher at the high school. But we were able to modify some things to the best of our ability so that students had opportunities to still be in learning capacity. So the answer to that, Keith, is it would be determined upon, I guess.
Like new certain programs.
We haven't pinpointed those, but there will certainly be
That may be something to let people know that what potentially could
a
be
specific.
gone. Yeah, well, yeah. Just
And one of the concerns with that, because we have heard that at every meeting, is would that make people, if it didn't affect them, think that, well, I don't like that anyhow, so I'm not going to support that. And so your question has been asked by other folks is, like, what specifically would those cuts be? And we obviously have considered, like, okay, what is required by East Muskingum schools to do? To come in here in these respective buildings every day and teach and learn from those. What happens after school is not a requirement, but we also know that that's what's bringing so many of our kids an opportunity to be at school, and the life lessons that you learn from the commitment to play an instrument, to be involved in athletics or any other opportunity really is what makes the whole educational process what it is. And so we would certainly hate to say that this will not be here, but there will be some tough decisions should it not pass. Both levies not pass, for sure.
When does phase two,
We're in phase 2, so that's good. And then the final phase, the final third would be in the next budget. When does phase 2 of the Fair School Funding Formula begin? And we're in it. So that we were fortunate that was supported by the legislature. And so that was one of the reasons we saw an increase in our state funding this school year, because it was supported at a higher percentage.
That put it up to the 67%, right?
It will be next year. It will be up to 67%. So help me with my math. If you divided something by 6 and you're in year 3, 1/3 is in between there. So where are we there? I don't know what that number is, but that's kind of where we are in that part of the equation. And then again, hopefully that's continued to be supported so that we would go for the final third of that pushed by the state support beyond that. So,
But even with that fair school funding being 66% or 100%, doesn't negate the need for a positive vote on both.
absolutely.
legs.
Yes.
We still need the help.
Correct.
We still need that funding coming in.
Right. Sometimes people don't like to ask questions in the big group. So if there aren't any group questions, we do, again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being supportive of East Muskingum schools. And I'm going to say, as a citizen, thank you for caring. I mean, you took the time to come here to be informed and make those decisions. So my, I guess, challenge or ask of you would be, if your family members or your neighbors or whatever aren't sure and you have an opportunity to share this information with them, if they support both of these, this will not be an increase in their taxes. It will not be an increase, and it's imperative that we get the support in order for us to continue the level of programming that we currently have. So if you have that opportunity to have discussions with your neighbors, your relatives, whoever those may be, please do that. And again, if you're welcome to go. We did a really good job with our time tonight, and if anyone has questions that they would like to ask, they could do that. Where will they be able to do this if they want to do this later? That's a good question. Levy committee, will this go to the Facebook? We're recording this, our website and the Facebook.
Probably both.
So
Definitely the website.
okay,
We'll have to see about the Facebook. Just
the length of it. Okay, very good. So the East Muskingum Levy website.
To me, I think it's important to get that information. Where can you get the information? And spread it as wide as.
Right.
Especially, I was happy to be able to get her.
Yard sign, yes.
And
Very
I
good.
noticed that we don't have a lot of signs.
We have signs that people can pick up at this point.
Yep.
So we have first signs in the stores.
But, it's seaside. As many as possible.
Right.
That's great. Spread the good news. That's what we need you to do. Okay, thank you for coming. And again, if you want to check in with the auditor's website, we can kind of help you with that. If you have any other questions, I'll be around. And I just wanted to make sure maybe I didn't do this. We do have some school board members here tonight. We have some levy chair level people, and then we have a group of folks that have been on that levy committee who have been faithful throughout almost every single meeting. So thank you to all of you for being here and continuing to support this. So have a good night. Thank you.